Wait, hold on. Why are you cheering? Nothing has even happened yet. How about we make something happen before you start cheering? Welcome back to part 2 on the bad to the bone 400 naturally aspirated small block Chevy build for the 67 Pro Touring Camaro. Yeah, see, now you can cheer. Now that's something to cheer about. In this video, we're gonna be showing and installing the Dart aluminum heads, which are a very nice piece. We'll be setting up the rocker geometry with the rockers, the pushrod length, and how that whole configuration should look, how the lifters should look rolling on the springs, on the heads. So get your popcorn, get your Skittles, as the master mechanic would say. Sit back, let's get right into it.
So these are the replacement heads from the original that were unrepairable. We went with the same ones. These are the Dart Pro ones, and the way he got them, Craig got them when he assembled them, is he got the valves from Dart. So the Dart undercut valve, stainless valve, the 208 160 exhaust. The springs is what I got originally with the camshaft that we're not using, but the springs are still good. They're just a polished spring. It's a double with a dampener. Roller valve springs. It's a solid roller cam. I don't know if I mentioned that. And it has a Manly tool steel. This is a raised 50 thousandths just to get the installed height right. Craig did the whole, set up the head. He did a little bit of the exhaust blending. They're not really poured. It's pretty much an out of the box steel, just mild cleanup on it. We got Dart heads and Dart block. It's all darted out.
Okay, this is a Morel solid roller lifter. It's an 842 body. And we're going to start by measuring the lifters today just to make sure we have the correct clearance before we just go put them in. So we're going to run through and measure these guys in a few different places, measure all of them, and make sure they are round and be able to check the correct clearance on them.
How common of knowledge is this to do this? How many people do this?
A lot of people don't do it, but a lot of people should do it, especially with a lot of the aftermarket blocks and a lot of the aftermarket lifter companies. The lifter bodies vary in size, so you can have some clearance problems. If any engine builder that's ever had one will stick a lifter, and then they will definitely be measuring all the lifters from there on out, because to find out the hard way is a very painful way to figure it out. So it measures 844.0. So we just go down the line and measure all of them.
Measure every single hole. So you're pretty much just making sure the holes on the block match up the lifters.
Yes, exactly. Make sure that they were honed. They're bored and then honed properly. If not, we have to re-hone them ourselves to get the right clearance. We're looking for about 2 thousandths clearance on a iron block. Okay, so now we're running through a pushrod geometry sweep. We put a head on, we installed a couple test springs, we installed the rockers we're going to run, the guide plates. We did a quick alignment to make sure that the guide plates are aligned and the tips of the rockers are aligned over the valve stem closely. Set the lash at 20, which is what it's going to run when it's hot. And then we're using this tool that I actually built, this tool for checking proper geometry. And we're actually going to be measuring the valve sweep. So we're going to do a quick run through here, and as the intake valve is opening, you notice that it's indicating we're about 90 thousandths of a wide pattern. So a lot of times people will use a Sharpie to try to measure this, but we're actually measuring how far it's sweeping and where it's sweeping. So at full lift, at half lift is around 90, and at full lift, it's only back sweeping to about 75, comes back up to around 90, and then close. So we're going to go start putting longer push rod in here, and that will start correcting our geometry. So now we added 100 thousandths of push rod length. Now we're at 8/100, and we're going to go through and run through the sweep again. So we're opening, and we're going to about, so we find peak. I kind of find that it's almost 70 thousandths. At half lift, and then as we approach full lift, we're back sweeping. It'll stop, so we're about 43. So we went from about a 90 thousandths wide sweep to 70 thousandths wide sweep. And then, so we're going to close it. We're going to put an even longer push rod again and try it again. So we've arrived at our final geometry and pushrod length. In this case, we've lengthened it 200 thousandths from where we started. We're at 8200 now, and we'll run through a final sweep here. So we're on the opening side, and we're about a 50 thousandth sweep outward at half lift, and then at approaching full lift, we are about 8 thousandths from where we started, which is pretty close. We're gonna, based on pushrod availability, we're not gonna be able to go up or down from there. So we're gonna stick with that 8200 number, and then back out to 50 and close.
So I just wanted to point out, so 7/800 is a stock small block Chevy length. This is 8/200 now. So we're 400 thousandths longer than a stock pushrod. So the one we started with was 800 thousandths. That's why he was saying that we're only 200 thousandths longer than what we started with, because we already started with a longer pushrod.
So I also wanted to take a shot from this angle, and we're going to look at the relationship of the rocker arm and the starting place. This is with the valve closed. We're looking at this angle here, and as we open the intake rocker here, that's at half lift right there. You notice you have a very favorable relationship. We almost went a true 90 degrees between the pushrod, and if you were to draw a straight line across here, and we're pretty close to that. And then at full lift, we're on the other side, approximately the same angle we started at, which is really, really good for a stud rocker engine where there's always some kind of a compromise. So this Crowder done a very good job with the rockers, and our rocker geometry looks really good. We switched to the exhaust side, got our geometry just right. We're just gonna run through and try to zero in and show you what that minimum sweep looks like on the valve tip itself. So we're on the opening side now. We're at about half lift there. And then we're coming to full lift. And as we come to full lift, we're sweeping back towards the intake flange, close to where we started our sweep at. And at full lift, we're about 5 thousandths away from where we started it at. And then we're gonna come back. As we close, they're doing that in reverse. Sweep out and sweep back in. And you notice it's biased a little bit towards the exhaust side of the valve tip, but that's okay because you want to minimize your sweep, and your sweep width or sweep pattern will trump the placement of the roller tip. I mean, there's obviously extremes to all of this, but you always want to minimize your sweep and get the right geometry versus trying to keep it perfectly centered over the valve tip. Without one of these tools, you couldn't do this, so I don't recommend at home to try to do it that way. But if you have a tool to accurately measure your sweep, you can get your placement offset a little bit as needed to get the minimized sweep pattern.
Man, this thing's really coming together. Looks really good. We got all the studs put in here. I'm waiting on Craig. He's got to put the valves that we took out, the valve springs to the tester springs. So while I'm waiting for him to put that back together, I'm going to be putting a fuel pump block-off plate. This is machined to run a mechanical pump. In my opinion, it's kind of borderline running a mechanical pump on the horsepower this is going to make and the size carburetor and everything. So I decided to go do an electric. So I'm just going to block it off, and we're going to run electric pump return style. Adapter, just a gasket, one single gasket, and just a nice little aluminum block-off. So we're getting the head gaskets put on and already got the driver's side put on. We're running this is a 40 thousandths multi-layer head gasket, and it's a 4165. So with the flat top, the piston and the heads and everything that we're running, this thing's gonna be like right at 11:1 compression. So we're gonna run premium gas in it, pump gas. It'll be a 91 octane. So I'm gonna sneak this gasket on here. With the studs, you kind of gotta be careful because the multi-layers catch on the threads. So you gotta go straight as possible and be gentle with it. And one of the reasons why you want to run a tad over your engine bore size on a gasket is because of the radius. If you have it too close to the same size, because of the radius, it'll fire underneath and burn a hole. It'll burn through somewhere in the combustion. It's more likely, I should say, to burn through, and then pretty much it blows the head gasket. So that's why I want to run a little bit oversized your bore diameter. Because of the radius of the bore. So on the small block Chevy cylinder heads, it doesn't matter. They go on either way. Craig likes to do a reference. So he marked when he put them together. So they're marked the cylinder. So 2468. So this is the passenger side, and then he does a little reference on the cylinder head itself. He marks it. He likes to give him a home. He likes to designate a side of the engine to him, but the small block Chevys, it doesn't matter. And I don't know if I mentioned or not that these are also Engel plug heads. So again, same thing. You gotta be careful with the studs. You gotta go straight as possible here to keep it from binding up. What were you saying over there? Peanut Gallery was talking a little bit there. Oh, look at that. It's like it's meant to be.
Yeah, buddy.
Meant to be.
Wow. Time out. We just put it on.
Oh, it's gotta be. You gotta take it back off and grind the rivets off, the top ones. These gotta come out.
He's talking crazy right now. He bumped his head.
Sorry. And we got a little film of silicone. It's a good idea.
You're not going to do this, but you don't need
Rivets gotta
silicone.
come out.
No, you don't.
Rivets gotta come out.
It does not have to come out.
Rivets have to come out.
That's happy right there. Well, Craig, he's slacking. He doesn't want to put his head together, so I'm going to do it. So we're gonna take the valve spring here. We already got our valve in here. Actually, probably easier if we just shove it on the. I'll set it right there a minute. Normally, you have these things all pneumatic. I don't know why this thing. I don't know what this cranking wheel is.
I like to keep it 1800s around here.
Where's your horse with your wagon?
Horse and buggy. It's all the horsepower he can handle.
Oh, good one.
Oh man, we crank this thing down here, squash the spring. We get the spring all squashed, and we take our little locks and put our locks in there and holds everybody together. Can you believe this? This here holds everybody together. It keeps everybody happy right there. One lock went down a little far. I got to get it back up here so they're even. We made it. Just like that. Look, mono hands. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? So it holds all that pressure back. The multi-layer have little rivets in it. Normally 3 of them. They have them on each side and in the bottom. Old Grumpy over here, he couldn't leave him alone. Couldn't leave him in there. So we ground the ones off on top. He thinks that the gasket would cock a little bit and that it wasn't going to lay flat on the block and it was going to leak.
Correct.
Fell on the ground and he kicked and screamed. So I had to pull the heads back off. He sanded them off. So we took the little rivets off the top of the multi-layer, but we have plenty of head studs to keep everything lined up.
It's actually an all-star.
You're an all-star.
I'm an all-star.
Look
All
at
right.
you. So what are you doing here, sir?
We are removing the timing cover because we did a final end play check, and upon tightening all the bolts all the way, we lost our 5 to 10 thou end play here. Do a little more machining and recheck.
So while Craig's setting up the timing pointer and getting it ready for checking top dead center, is there any facts that we haven't already mentioned on this engine that come to mind?
Well, we showed on the cam when we're degreeing it, we showed the lobe lift, but we didn't mention, so we're running a Crower stainless rocker, full roller, and these are a 1.6 ratio instead of the stock 1.5 that would be on a small block Chevy. The actual lift, when you add in the ratio of the rocker, is just shy. I think the exhaust was just shy of 700. It was like 698, I think it was, and then the intake was it was 688. 80-ish, something like that. So it's a pretty healthy cam. It has a little, more lift. The duration doesn't change, obviously. Just the lift changes with the longer ratio rocker. So it's a pretty healthy for sure. It's gonna make some tornadoes.
Okay, now we're gonna set TDC before we put our driver's side head on. It's really easy to get in a hurry, get the head on, the timing cover on, and shoot, forgot to do TDC. Be sure to check your balancer, especially on a new build that you've never assembled before. So what we're gonna do is we have our dial indicator set up like we were degreeing the cam in, and we're gonna roll it up close and get it right up there to TDC. And then we have this adjustable timing pointer. You come over here, you can see that this guy has an adjustable slide on it. So we're gonna get it set right here at the edge at TDC. And then we're gonna go and lock it down. Sometimes you put a little drop of Loctite on these screws so they can't come loose. And then now we're set at true TDC. So when we set the timing on the dyno, we will know that everything's correct.
That ain't going nowhere. So I'm gonna clean the ARP lube off the studs here. A little mess so it doesn't attract any dirt, but while I do that, leave a little comment what you think of this bad boy, how it's coming along. It's gonna be a nasty machine. Now that I got the head torqued here, I'm gonna flip it over. We're gonna get work on the oil pump. Oh,
Easy there.
man, that thing's a flipper. So we got the oil pump all rebuilt. This was a used pump. The oil pan and the pump was part of the parts package. So now we're gonna torque it down. I got a new stud in here, ARP. So we're gonna do a single pull torque, 65 foot-pounds. Here we go. Here we go. So the oil pan now, where's the oil pan at? So
Where's the oil pan? Show 'em.
Here's the oil pan. It's a mid-grade oil pan. Little kick out, got a little scraper in it, but it doesn't have any dipstick provisions for block dipstick. It has a dipstick in the oil pan. Then this block is a passenger side dipstick, so it's a later model, 2-piece rear main, but passenger side dipstick. So we had a little problem with oil pan and everything sealing. So plug the block dipstick, and then we put a little bit of, call it epoxy. We put some epoxy over here to level it out so the gasket surface has a smooth, consistent spot to seal on. So we're gonna 1-piece pan gasket in here, and we'll put our pan on, and then we're gonna wait on our pan, right? We're gonna wait on the pan because we talked about we're gonna check the distributor mesh, the distributor in the gear, and then the engagement of the drive rod. So we're gonna hold off on putting on the pan.
Okay, we got the engine flipped over, and now we are working on the valve train and the top end. So you guys will see that in the next video. We're gonna put the rest of the engine together and do the final assembly. So hit the subscribe button. You don't wanna be missing out on this engine build. The Master Mechanic's doing the valve train right now, the top end. It's gonna be bad to the bone. So hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and the one before it, and you're looking forward to the next. Leave a comment on what you think of the engine, and I'll see you guys in the next video.